Hello, how you doing? So here's the next update in this series, doing a deep dive on hellish near-death experiences or distressing near-death experiences, or in those situations where people report hellish scenes, distressing things, things that they say they were in hell or saw demons or what have you. I'm looking at this hard, very hard, because I think I'm cracking the code, bro. Here's where we're at. So it goes back to there are people who report near-death experiences, and they describe them as being very distressing, full of fear imagery, demons, devils, fire, buildings burning, falling down, destroyed landscapes, dangerous things that are scary and they're freaking out. Okay, so that's just part of it. Now, when I first started looking into near-death experiences, I noticed that the vast majority of these kinds of reports, near-death experience, just standard old run-of-the-mill near-death experiences, do not include that kind of imagery. Okay, and the only time that I ever saw anybody talking about hell during a near-death experience account is when they were talking about their life review. It was, and especially when people are having to confront things that are difficult memories for them. So it was like, you know, how it was like hell. I felt like I was in hell. I felt like I was going through hell. Primarily, these are from people who treated people poorly. They did bad things during their life, and they had to confront it during their life review. So I went, okay, that's where the entire concept of hell comes from. It turns out that's not the case. Okay, so if that's not the case, where did it come from? I've cracked the code on that, and I'm still working on the details, and I'm not going to let it out right now. But here, going back to the 1992 report by Dr. Bruce Grayson and Nancy Evans Bush, they looked at these accounts where they started off, and they had a separate category for them. They started off as a hellish or a nightmarish or a basically bad situation, and then it flipped into your typical near-death experience. Okay, and there's a couple that there was Howard Storm in Paris in 1985. There's a couple that they pointed to that were supposedly the keystone cases, you could say. There's one thing that happens that we as humans have evolved over, and again, only Homo sapiens here, okay? So, but let's just go with the 300,000 year number. So 300,000 years, Homo sapiens have been evolving, and we have defense mechanisms built in. This is the kind of thing where you're in a situation. Imagine, okay, put yourself in the Rift Valley in Africa 150,000 years ago. A lion jumps out of the bush and grabs you by the arm. What are you going to do? Well, your body, your brain immediately kicks into overdrive. You get flooded with adrenaline and other chemicals that your body that can produce that will increase your heart rate, increase your blood pressure, give you strength and energy, and also reduce pain so that you can punch that lion in the mouth and survive the attack. And the people that had those kinds of responses were the ones that survived. The people that didn't have those kinds of responses were the ones that didn't. So those are evolutionary traits that we all have as humans, okay? So that's one kind of thing that happens. The other one is when you're, let's say, in a coma, and you have that, and this is really common for people that are in comas, that they have these distressing images, and you might be in a coma for weeks. And then this is what happens, that you have these distressing images as part of the coma. Now, what happens is that they're conflated into two things are made into one. That what's really going on here, and again, looking at the data and looking at through these clear eyes of not having any bias as to what's going on, it's really pretty clear that when you have a distressing near-death experience, and it's someone who was in a coma for a long time, and then they actually did have a flatline death as part of that, so there's a flip, there's a switch, there's a scene, and it's really two different events. Now, the person, when they wake up after 2 weeks of being in a coma, you say, what happened? They're going to describe this hellish scene that then turned into something that was much nicer. The hellish part of it has nothing to do with the near-death experience. They just combine the two different events in their brain, and they tell it as one story, because honestly, when you're in a coma, you have no way of knowing, well, I was thinking this way and then that happened, and it's just impossible. So that's why they've been conflated. I'm going to keep this one pretty short because that's basically it for this piece. I would recommend that you go to the website and check it out. Again, please do all of the social media stuff like follow, share, recommend to other people if you like this material. I think that's it. Thank you very much. Peace out. Have a great day. Bye now.